Hi and welcome to From Many People's Strength, the podcast that covers Saskatchewan politics and current events. My name is Cory and my pronouns are he and him.
And my name is David. My pronouns are they and them or he and him.
Okay. It's been, I don't know, I feel a little foggy this week. Like it's been a hot week. I've been busy.
The heat wave seems like it's the biggest story, but I don't really know if we have much to say about it. It sure was hot. Yep.
It was hot.
Yep, it was hot. Not as bad as BC, but still gross, especially for people up in Saskatoon. I think it got a lot hotter there than here.
I was actually lucky to be working night shifts so that I slept through the hottest part of the day, and then I was working when it was cool, so it wasn't too bad, but...
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And then it sounds like the big thing up there was they didn't get the cool off at night like we did. Like here we were up in the high 30s, but it was like 17, 20 and whatnot during the day. I think by the sounds of things, Saskatoon got to experience, 39 during the day and 36 at night. So I'm making those numbers up. I don't know exactly where their highs and lows were.
But it was still hot.
It was like that was sort of how it felt to the people I was talking to up there. But again, don't know what to say about that. Weather isn't climate, but climate certainly informs the weather, right? So I guess that everything links to politics in one way or another.
That's right. Yeah.
The extreme weather is we're going to start getting more and more of it as time goes on.
I mean, it wasn't here, but there were people, I didn't hear about it here, but there were lots of people who actually died from the heat in other places. And I mean, maybe there is a political angle to that where, if they had better access to cooler temperatures or more water or something. But I guess that's not what we're here for. We're here for Saskatchewan.
We're here for Saskatchewan. I'll let you talk about more global politics in your highfalutin fancy podcasts.
That's right. My other very important shows.
Yeah,
very
exactly.
important. Okay, so I don't recall hearing about this case in when it first came up, but according to this article, video shows Stephen Rigby did not point a gun at Saskatoon police, family says. And Stephen Rigby was a person who he was shot by police. And this is kind of the story about his mother after she saw the videos of the events.
Yeah.
And she said that she was worried he had acted in an aggressive way, but apparently he shot his gun into the air, and the family feels that the police could have done something other than shoot him. And he was drunk at the time, and he was apparently in a position where he had already spoken about committing suicide by cop or something. So it's a kind of a really, I don't know, sad story, I think.
Yeah. How often can we say, when things that are a one-off keep happening, they're no longer a one-off. Of all the things that have happened, like there are bound to be isolated incidents where the police, I don't want to say they had no other choice, but like the police probably did fall within what is considered of a reasonable use of force by the guidelines they're supposed to be following. I don't know if it was this one. And this one certainly feels like that's not the case, but it's certainly a lot more borderline than a lot of other cases have been. Like he did have a gun, but it's one of those things too where, like, I don't know if there's a lot of benefit of the doubt the police have a right to at this point. Like when they are doing shit, and it's cases like this as well that put the lie to the whole all lives matter talking points. Because from what I can tell, Rigby is white, or if he is not, he is white passing. So I don't know his actual ethnicity or ancestry, but like he certainly appears white. His mom does as well. And again, if he is of another ethnicity, he's still definitely white passing. And the police would be under the impression he was white when they interacted with him. Police accountability groups are supporting his mom. We don't really have an active BLM movement in Saskatchewan. Like there is, like there's BLM rallies, but we don't
Right.
have it the same way others. But like all of the same groups that are quote unquote only worried about Indigenous lives or only worried about Black lives are still stepping up and supporting Rigby's mom. And
Yeah.
all of these people who are like, oh, well, all lives matter are really silent when a white person gets killed by the police as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And I've said on this show a number of times, I think there's two separate but overlapping issues, one of police violence and one of institutional racism. Both are problems in and of themselves, even if the other one didn't exist. And so even if there is no racial element to this, that doesn't negate the issue of police being violent and police defaulting to violence faster than they should.
One of the things that they talk about in this is like one of the main questions that the family has is that could some other less lethal method of force been used? Like I know they list tasers here. Tasers can still be quite lethal. Actually, there's a lot of evidence about their lethality. But beanbag shotguns, rubber bullets, or police dogs. Although I don't like the use of police dogs.
No.
But like she says here, he was intoxicated. He's falling down drunk, and he's trying to get out. There's a number of things that you could probably do. Maybe they felt their life was in danger, but where do you give the benefit of the doubt, to the victim or to the police? Right.
Yeah. And again, this would be different if there wasn't a systemic issue with overviolence by police, right? Like there is issues with policing in lots of places, but if we lived in a country where police did not have a disproportionate history of violence, if we lived somewhere where, one person per year is killed by police in extreme circumstances and it makes the news every single time it happens. And there are countries in the world that are like that, where just police don't kill people.
Yeah, that's right.
And like when like I said, when they do, it is a rare event and makes the news because of how shocking it is. And countries with populations similar to Canada.
And yet somehow that's not the case here.
Well, and again, a broken record here. We have the issue where we're so close to the U.S. It's so easy to compare ourselves to them. And I've shared with you the fake graph that I made up before, where you show a bar graph where the United States is so incredibly bad and all of these other countries are really, really low on whatever horrible statistic it is. But then as soon as you take the U.S. off and the scale changes, all of a sudden now you see Canada's pretty freaking high up there. Like if the U.S. is 10 times worse than Canada, but Canada is still 5 times worse than everyone else. When the U.S. is in the picture,
we're not good.
We still, we look great when the U.S. is on the picture. Whether it's gun violence, whether it's all sorts of issues, and I think this is again another one. Police violence falls into that same category. We don't do a great job compared to other high income nations, unless you compare us to the U.S. We should stop using the U.S. as our benchmark. I think that should have been, if there is any lesson of the last decade, it should be we've got to stop using the U.S. as our benchmark for virtually anything. So many metaphors you can use, but again, this individual case, we have a couple different news stories about it. There is going to be a coroner's inquest. I'm sure we will talk about this again. It actually,
the next article is the coroner's inquest.
So it's again, same story, just different angle on it. So I think it's good that there's a coroner's inquest. Coroner's inquests are not trials. There's no determination of guilt for the police officers who did this.
There's just a number of, people discussing it from different angles. We have like the police officer who did who committed the shooting. He actually says, "I did not want to shoot Stephen." He's a former officer, and said this was a guy who needed help, not a guy who needed to see the end of his life happen. So, I mean, in a sense, you get the impression that the cop knows that it wasn't the ideal outcome, but whether or not that's means anything, I don't know.
Yeah. And we talk about, all cops are bastards, and like we don't want to absolve anyone of their actions. But at the same time, none of this should be ever, not none of it, but more important than the individual accountability is looking at the system as a whole.
Yeah, that's right.
Why if someone is at risk of committing suicide, is the primary person dealing with the situation a cop rather than a therapist or a counselor? We've got things. Talking about this years ago, where we have a 50-year history of politicians who talk about being fiscally responsible and cutting costs and I can't remember the term, but being fiscally responsible and
right,
cutting expenses and whatnot. And they almost always mean, let's cut $1 worth of services to then pay an extra $5 worth of policing to fill the gap that's created. And it's reached a point where, you have issues where someone who is a risk of suicide gets murdered, or not murdered, but killed. It's just bad all around. And again, even taking the racial element out of it, that doesn't make it better. Like, police also shouldn't kill white people, right?
That's right.
That's also a thing that shouldn't happen.
Well, I guess our next article is related to the failure of systems, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
A 12-year-old who ran a farm and cared for siblings after her father's heart attack earns a citizen award. And I kind of get the impression that this is supposed to be like a feel-good, amazing child type of story. But as I was reading it, all I could get was, where's the help? Like, why is this 12-year-old the one that has to step up here? Yes, her father had a heart attack. I think it was her mother had to go to the hospital and be with her dad. So then this 12-year-old is there. Her grandma was there to help out, but I don't know. It seems like there could have been more help for her.
There's a Facebook group that's something along the lines of dystopian nightmares repackaged as feel good stories, and this reminds me of that, right? Like I'm glad she's getting the recognition for doing what she did for her family. But you're right. Like, it's how are we a society as rich as we are, having a 12-year-old have to run a farm and raise a family?
It doesn't make sense,
right? How are there not supports in place that when a father has a heart attack, that we don't have supports in place for the family to get by? And like again, similar to the top story, like this is I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, it's even if it's even above and beyond to it, any racial element to it. Like, we should have supports in place for people who are struggling, and it is really unfortunate when we don't.
Yeah, I guess we say it over and over again. This is a recurring thing. We don't have supports for people who need it in our society. So let's work on that. Anti-abortion ex-MP mayor among those vying for longtime Conservative Moose Jaw seat. Fraser Talmy, former Conservative MP, and former Conservative MP Brad Trost say they'll seek nomination this month for the Conservative seat in Moose Jaw. So this is, I guess maybe it's not a headline so much as a quick look.
Yeah.
But it caught my eye because it says he's an anti-abortion ex-MP, which Brad Trost I don't think is he's not the kind of person I would want representing me, but
no. He's also not the kind of person Conservative Party leadership wants representing the Conservative Party
Yeah,
right
that's
now,
right.
right? Like, Aaron O'Toole is trying to portray his party as a party of moderate conservatives. Like that was
Yeah.
that he was the leader who ran on being the fiscal conservative, social moderate, and then he has 62, 63 MPs vote against, banning conversion therapy. If Trost wins, Trost will continue to be vocal about trying to criminalize abortion in Canada, trying to loosen gun restrictions. They talk about him wanting to scrap any carbon tax. Like the Aaron O'Toole will have a very tough. The Conservatives in modern day Canada have a tough road to walk because they do have to make it look like they are not punishing people like Trost, while also trying to convince other people that Trost isn't actually in the party and doesn't represent the party. Like, they're trying to be multiple things to multiple people.
And it's not good. It doesn't translate. I mean,
Harper did it. Harper pulled it off. So it can. Like Harper.
Right. You got to rule with an iron fist, though.
He did. He had to rule with an iron fist. But Harper had all of the Trosts in his party, and were able to keep MPs like Trost satiated. Like the social conservatives never felt like they got what they wanted under Harper, but they never felt like they needed to abandon the party. While at the same time, for the bulk of Harper's time as leader, the 905 out in Ontario still kept voting for him.
Right.
I get it. That's sort of Regina and Saskatoon have the equivalent of the 905, like your Emerald Park, your White City. You have a couple of similar neighborhoods outside of Saskatoon. They're urban, they're affluent. Their kids are in GSAs, and they would never vote against a GSA, and they attend Pride every year. And they're not anti-maskers, and they have gay friends, and they even put up a BLM sticker on their SUV, right?
Right.
But they still want to be able to vote conservative without their conscience being guilty. And when Harper was in charge, they could, right? There were a lot of those people, whether it's the 905 in Toronto or whether it's White City outside Regina, there are a lot of people who upper middle class want to be suburban, want to feel progressive, want their kids to not be ashamed of them, who quietly could vote for the Stephen Harper Conservatives. And I think Aaron O'Toole wanted to be the guy they could vote. A lot of them couldn't vote for Andrew Scheer, right? A lot of them couldn't, in good conscience, vote for Andrew Scheer, and then therefore didn't. But I think O'Toole wanted to be the guy that they could vote for, and
it's not looking good right now.
if Brad Trost wins, and other candidates like Brad Trost wins, that doesn't necessarily mean the Conservatives don't still have a shot. They just have a different path to victory, and I don't know what that path to victory could look like for them in the fall. The splitting of the left is obviously going to be an issue.
Of course.
There's a lot of people like me who, I've voted Liberal in most elections. I had Ralph Goodale as my MP, so that was part
makes
of it.
it
But
a little easier.
I'm almost certainly not going to in the fall.
Yeah,
I won't be voting Conservative either, but I can see that being part of their path to victory. The NDP surging always helps the Conservatives, unfortunately.
Well, we have the advantage in Saskatchewan that if we vote against the Conservatives, our vote is in the minority most of the time.
Either way, it's not going to matter. The Conservatives are likely to. They haven't in my riding. I've had a non-conservative MP for most of my time living in Saskatchewan.
Right.
But
I had a conservative MP, for the majority of my last few years until I was in Ralph Goodale's riding, and then
So you're the reason he lost.
Yeah. And then he got voted out.
Right. So, but anyway, I think it's, Trost says he doesn't believe his stance will cause too many rifts in the party, but it's mainstream conservatism that is anti-abortion, which the data in Canada does not bear that out.
No, he's watching too much U.S. news is what he's doing.
Yeah. Canada is probably one of the most pro-choice countries on the planet. That is one of those areas where we don't need to have the U.S. creating a bell curve for us. Right. we are an incredibly, incredibly pro-choice society. That our culture is very it doesn't I can't see that being popular. That social mores change very quickly. So I don't want this to sound like me saying, "Oh, it's not something we need to worry about." I think we do. I think it's still a concern, but
it's not directly. Maybe correct me if my comparison is bad. But there was a time when John Gormley was arguing for the removal of the rules around alcohol in strip clubs in Saskatchewan, because he didn't want big government to be, controlling people. But then when it came, and the NDP was the party that was saying, hey, we're going to keep these rules in place.
Yeah.
And then now it's the Conservatives in positions saying, okay, we're going to keep these rules in place. And John Gormley and the Conservative movement in Saskatchewan, right along with them, are saying, yes, we need to keep these rules in place because they protect trafficking. And it's a result of just, they changed their mind to match the current.
Oh yeah. John Gormley will consistently change his political beliefs to match the party he's cheering for, rather than pick the party to cheer for based on the beliefs he supports. He's a team player through and through.
Right. So if it came to be where abortion became an actual issue among the Conservatives in Saskatchewan, John Gormley would jump on that anti-choice bandwagon in a heartbeat, right?
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And in turn, his followers and much of the Saskatchewan Conservatives that weren't already on board would jump on board.
And where I see it being an issue, if the Conservatives win, whether it's a majority or a minority, if the Conservatives are forming a government, I see it being very similar to what it was under Harper. I don't see a big sweeping public debate about criminalizing abortion. I think the Conservatives know that 75% of the country won't agree with them on that. For the most part, if that was an actual issue people have to pick their MP on based on their conscience, that's a losing path for the Conservatives 100 times out of 100.
Right.
However, you put someone like Brad Trost as the under cabinet, put him in some sort of portfolio, not a full cabinet minister, but one step down from a cabinet minister, give him a junior posting somewhere related to healthcare, and he doesn't have to make abortion illegal. He could just make it harder. Yeah. And that's what we've seen. We saw that under Harper, right? Abortion became more and more difficult to access over the 10 years he was in government for. And it was slow and it was subtle and it would never made the news because it or didn't make headline news because it was done in such a way that the 905 in White City could still keep voting for them.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have to feel like they were voting for someone like Brad Trost. Because someone like Brad Trost is behind the scenes. They're doing it subtly and slowly.
It's the
optics. I think that's
the
same
matter,
thing
right?
that will happen, right?
Yeah.
Those 62 MPs that voted against banning conversion therapy, they're not going away. They didn't win that vote, but they delayed it long enough. There's a very good chance that bill won't actually pass. Right. And if the Conservatives do form government, those 62 MPs will have various roles on committees and in
and
private
then that
member bills,
on.
and and finding different ways. Well, the ban won't even have gotten into place.
Right.
It won't get put in place, and they'll find other ways of subtly and slowly supporting the social conservative point of view. And again, that was the Harper magic of being able to quell the disruptions caused by those MPs by giving them little bits of what they wanted here and there, keeping their base happy that progress was still being made, but angry enough at the state of affairs that they'll keep voting conservative. So
right, yeah.
This is one of this we've covered this story with a different twist about 15 times now. So and it's good. I'm glad, right? We have progress of people going, hey, maybe let's not have people who committed genocide as the names of things. For listeners instead of viewers, Saskatoon to rename John A. Macdonald Road following a unanimous vote by city councillors. Again, like you said, like city councils making the calls that will make changes, I guess. Yep.
Although
the right thing to do.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
The only reason people will be angry about it is because they are. The only reason people are going to be angry about it is a street they probably didn't care about in the first place. They're angry because they have decided to get angry about cancel culture or whatever. Like if this was renamed from John A. Macdonald Road to pick a Rough Riders quarterback of the last 30 years and name it after them.
Whatever, right?
Whatever. It doesn't matter. Like no one really cares.
We're just honoring this football player now.
Right. But and no one would have cared about losing John A. Macdonald Road if it was named, Henry Burris Road. I can name not Burris because he's not exactly popular here, but
right. He was very disliked for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, there is a nuanced discussion to be had about whether or not this is just a superficial change that will make people think that everything's hunky dory now, or if, will systemic actual change come after this? But all in all, I still think that the renaming of things like this is a good move.
Yeah. As long as it's not the only, like, I think you're right. Like, don't let it be, let it be a step, not the last step. And it's a good thing.
Saskatchewan doctors call on province to fund safe consumption sites, which I think we are both in favor of.
Yeah.
I think the Saskatchewan government has said that they weren't going to fund at least the one in Regina, but I can't recall exactly what the situation was.
During the election, they kind of pussyfooted around it, kind of saying they would if a good proposal was given. And I remember talking about how it was at least a step in the right direction, not being publicly opposed to it on principle, but then funding has been cut to it. They've kind of...
Yeah.
They're at least changing their rhetoric to be in support of it, but not actually putting their money where their mouth is.
Right.
And one of the moments that will always stick out with me from the leaders' debate at the last provincial election was Ryan Miley basically saying, you can't help someone get off drugs if they're dead.
Yeah.
And I think that is so powerful because, in Regina, this article talks about 648 drug overdoses in Regina from January to May alone, resulting in 58 deaths.
That's a lot for a small province like this.
Well, that's just Regina.
That's just Regina. That's
so, and that's not even a full year. That's January to May.
That seems like, it seems disproportionately high compared to other centers, doesn't it?
It does to me as well. And I'd have to look at the data to know for sure. And COVID makes a difference.
Yeah.
But we know that harm reduction saves lives. This isn't fuzzy science. This isn't the jury's still out. This isn't, we need to look into this further. We know that harm reduction saves lives, and by traditional let's be cold-hearted and ruthless approach to some of the shit.
money.
It saves money. It's cheaper. It is cheaper to make people not dead than to let them be dead.
Yeah.
Right? Like we know that. And like naloxone is like, it's not cheap, but it's a hell of a lot less expensive than dealing with someone who dies.
Yeah. Or even like you say, 648 drug overdoses in Regina from January to May. That's not cheap. Though, like, sure, okay, so 58 of them died, but there's still 590 people that had to be hospitalized and taken care of, and that's an expense on the system, if that's the angle you want to take it. Right?
And it is a public health issue that too frequently gets treated as a moral issue or a criminal issue.
Yeah, that's right.
And we don't do that with other health issues.
Yeah.
Like, if I have a heart attack tomorrow, it's going to get treated as a health issue.
Right.
If I start looking to deal with heart health or whatnot, like that is going to be treated as a health issue. Now, is some of the reasons why I am not the healthiest human in the world self-inflicted? Absolutely. Like, I've had more Big Macs than I probably should in my life. Those are some self-inflicted health concerns. But no one says, Dave, we can't have you go into the gym. That just supports the lifestyle you are leading if you are finding ways of getting exercise. Or going to a doctor and having my doctor give me a referral to a nutritionist, or talking to my doctor about what is a effective exercise regimen, right? Like, we don't talk about that. We don't treat that as, and I guess some people do. There's fat phobia is certainly a real thing. But,
right, that's true. Yeah.
So there is a little bit of moralizing on that. But someone looking at quitting smoking. We don't say, oh, we can't allow them to get a nicotine patch because that's just supporting their nicotine habit, right? Like, we don't do that.
Everybody understands. Everybody understands that if you are addicted to cigarettes, it's not because you're a failed human, right? Like, and they're fully like, everybody is fine with you going to the doctor and dealing with your addiction to cigarettes in that way.
Yeah.
But when it comes to other drugs,
I have never heard someone say we should stop having designated drivers because it just encourages alcoholism. Have you ever heard anyone make that argument that we shouldn't have a designated driver because that just encourages all of the other people that will drive home to drink too much?
Right. Yeah.
No, we say, you know what? Sometimes we drink responsibly. Sometimes we drink a little more than we should. But either way, whether we're drinking responsibly or drinking probably more than is healthy, having a designated driver to get us home is safer for us and safer for everyone else. Well, a safe consumption site is the same way. And if someone, whether someone's trying to get off alcohol or drugs or not, I think most people don't want to be addicted. But fuck it, even if they do, having a safe consumption site still makes things safer for everyone. And it costs less money. It's cheaper to have a designated driver than it is to pay for the car crash. And it's cheaper to have a safe consumption site than it is to deal with the economic and social impacts of drug overdoses. So.
Oil is rebounding, but rural municipalities are waiting on their bills. There is a chance that lost tax revenue could leave rural tax ratepayers holding the bag. Sure. This is from the Saskatoon Star Phoenix. And now that oil is back up to $70 a barrel almost, a lot of RMs in Northwest Saskatchewan, I'm not sure what's happening down in the east. This is specifically a region specific, I guess. A lot of these RMs or rural municipalities are hoping to recover the money that they didn't get from oil companies during the COVID time, because oil was so low, these companies claimed they couldn't pay. But yeah, I mean, I hope that these companies can pay the tax rates that they are required to pay. Over the last 4 years, the RM of Manitou Lake has written off $1.5 million in new municipal taxes it couldn't collect from oil and gas companies. That's quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
In 2015, the RM lost $402,000. Yeah, I mean, this is, I don't know, maybe it isn't the way I think of it, but I think of it as we got all our bags in these baskets waiting for oil companies, and if they don't pay, then we're left with nobody to pay.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, this is a different
I can't
issue.
hear you.
This is a different issue than what's being sort of discussed in just this. But you talk about Dutch disease, which the idea that when you put all of your eggs in one basket, not only do you suffer when something happens to that basket, you suffer disproportionately because you don't have those other baskets, and you haven't invested in those other baskets. So it's not just that oil tanked and we didn't have all of that revenue from oil. When oil was surging, we decided not to invest in other things because we thought, we'll just invest in oil.
Yeah, oil is good, therefore we'll just stick with it.
So we didn't have other industries and resources to come in and backfill the gap.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to poor planning and, I told you so pays no bills.
But I told you so.
Yeah. You talk I remember Stephen Harper actively making fun of those on the left who talked about the dangers of Dutch disease 10, 15 years ago. And then when it happened, came back with, well, nobody could have predicted this. Well, yeah, no, you made fun of all the people who did predict this.
That's so typical, right? It's always, oh yeah, you guys are just worrywarts, fear-mongering, worrying for nothing. And then when it happens, but nobody could have predicted it.
Yeah.
Who knew it was so complicated? All right.
Yeah. Pay your tax. And again, it speaks to bankruptcy as well, how Canadian bankruptcy law needs some serious overhaul for when people and companies get past the difficult times. What to do next?
The Sask Liberal Party is starting to look for a new leader.
Yeah.
No, maybe I'm being mean, but nobody cares.
No.
Zero people care.
I probably voted for the Saskatchewan Liberal Party more than most people. I held on to the belief that there was a middle ground available. I'm far less of a centrist now than I was 10 years ago, anyways. But the party got ripped in half, and half went to the Conservatives, and then the other half went to the NDP. The party got absorbed into the other two parties, and we can have a conversation about how the first past the post system is toxic and problematic and leads to two-party systems. That is a conversation I'm open to having. I would much rather see preferential balloting, and I think you're much in favor of proportional representation. And
I like a ranked choice, or
ranked choice is I prefer ranked choice over a PR, but until we have that, we're going to have a system that prefers two parties, and the Liberal Party aren't going to get votes.
No.
And it's not even that no third party could get votes in Saskatchewan. I think there is the possibility. But the Liberal Party is dealing with both the fact that they have a toxic brand, both because the federal Liberals are not super popular here, and the provincial Liberals,
they have a bad history here.
Yeah. People have been let down by the provincial Liberals a lot. Yeah. Because if the Green Party in Saskatchewan rallied and gets a single seat in the legislature, let's say Naomi wins her seat.
Sure.
I guarantee by the time the next election rolls around, she will still be a member of the Green Party.
Yeah,
right?
that's
Like
right.
we know that. We know if she's elected as a Green Party MP and is the leader of the Green Party, or whoever the MLA, not MP, and we know if there's a Green Party MLA elected, they will probably, in Naomi's case certainly, but any MP will almost certainly still be a Green Party MLA by the time the next election rolls around.
Yeah,
I would give you an 80% chance that if a Liberal MLA actually somehow, miracle of miracles, got elected, by the time the next election rolled around, they would have been absorbed into one of the other two parties.
Yeah, most likely the Sask party.
At this point, probably. But who knows? And it almost doesn't, like...
Yeah.
And people who might think of voting Liberal will assume it's whichever party they don't like. You instantly thought it'll probably be Sask Party. I think anyone who is torn between Sask Party and Liberal would assume it was NDP. So,
that's right.
I get the desire.
Yeah.
It's, and having gotten to see the inside of their working structure, they've got more than just those two things working against them.
They've got some work to do.
They've got some work to do. So I think they're better off reinvesting that same energy and vigor towards fighting for a ranked choice ballot system or a PR system first. And then once they have that, maybe reinvest that energy into actually creating a party that's fun.
Okay, so these are all related to residential schools, Indigenous survivors, and the bodies that were found in what's
Cowasses.
the name of Cowasses, and I mean, this is 751 unmarked graves. It's I don't actually have like the words to really say anything profound about this. There's a lot of articles in this because as the week since we recorded last, as it was things were going on, different stories were coming out, and then a few days after we recorded, that's when the discovery of the unmarked graves was, and then of course Trudeau comes out with his statement about how apologetic the Canadian government is, or how he feels, I guess, and there's arguments about the church, and there's people who are protesting, and we had Cancel Canada Day and all this stuff, and I don't know what to say.
This story is so big and has so many angles, and you and I decided a year ago to do a podcast about Saskatchewan politics, but we are categorically the wrong people to be talking about this. I think it is important that you and I elevate other voices, and I'm not going to not talk about issues that are important to talk about, but I think it's important that you and I continue to talk about how our opinions aren't the opinions that matter, and it's about first and foremost, even if we are trying to spread awareness through this thing that we do, it's anyone listening who cares about your or my thoughts on this should know that first and foremost, you need to be listening to Indigenous leaders and Indigenous voices on this topic far more than anything that we say.
There's so many good Indigenous voices on Facebook and on Instagram and TikTok. They have so many things, and they're already putting their work into it and putting their voices out there. I think it's important that we don't go to our Indigenous friends and ask them to tell us what to think and how to feel, but listen to the people who are already putting their voices out there.
Yeah, it's definitely not the time for us to add additional emotional labor onto people who are reeling. But the voices are already there. There are people who are sharing their stories and who have already put that emotional labor in. And
I mean, I don't know how many conservatives actually listen to us this far into the show, but if you still are listening to us, please don't attack people who are like protesting and by painting hands on churches and stuff. Don't decry these acts and try to understand them from the hurt and the anger and the sadness that is there and that is represented by these acts. Try to empathize with people that are suffering and have suffered. I don't know. Maybe that nobody's going to listen to that, but
I may have created too much of an echo chamber for myself because I'm not hearing much of that. A little, and I'm sure it is out there. I'm hoping this crosses political lines. I think what I'm hearing is conservatives going, yes, this is awful and it's all Trudeau's fault. At least
that's where they go with it.
At least they're acknowledging that it's awful.
That's right.
I think a lot of it is, it's Trudeau's fault because Trudeau Senior knew about it and didn't do anything. Right? I think that's where some of that's coming from, which I think.
And I don't want to give him a pass. Like, absolutely, yeah.
And current Trudeau has done, a pretty classic Trudeau job of saying the right things and not doing the right things.
Yep.
So
one of the things that I've seen is like, okay, so people are saying, okay, it's really great that you feel bad about this. It's really great that you are supportive of Indigenous people who are suffering through these discoveries. But can we please get some clean water on reserves?
Yeah.
And then I see responses to that saying, oh, but look at all this work that's been done. And here's $4.2 billion that's been spent on this. And the list of numbers that is on the Canadian government website saying, oh, well, these are the steps we've made. And I think it's about 1/10 of what needs to be done at the best estimates. And I think it's important that we don't give the government a bunch of credit for doing things that they've been pushed to do for years, and they're finally doing 1/10 of the work. Let's not pretend that they deserve credit for finishing it, right?
Yeah. No, it's the Martin Luther, or not the Malcolm X anecdote I've shared again multiple times about healing isn't sticking a knife in someone's back 9 inches and pulling it out by 3, right? The knife is still in the back. This isn't healing until the knife's been removed and the bandage has been put on, and then the healing can start. We're not even close to that. I think because of how shocking this is, I think at the very least, I'm hoping at the very least we've moved to the point where people acknowledge the knife is there. But really, that's the level we're at right now. We're people shouldn't get a pat on the back and a congratulations for acknowledging the knife exists.
Yeah, that's right. What is it, 94 recommendations in the Truth and Reconciliation? Yeah. Let's work on that.
Yeah. And these aren't new. The 94 recommendations have been around a very, very long time.
Obviously, okay, I guess the Cancel Canada Day angle.
Sure.
There was a lot of communities actually in Saskatchewan that did cancel Canada Day activities, and there was people blocking, there was a protest or a sit-in or what they called a die-in, I guess, on Albert Street in Saskatchewan or in Regina. Okay, yeah. And I think Saskatoon had something similar. So that's something that was...
and I don't know if there were any communities in the province that the city themselves had fireworks.
Right.
Regina and Saskatoon both canceled. Now, Regina and Saskatoon had both canceled because of COVID even before this, I believe. But I think for the most part, I don't, maybe there were some, but I don't know of any communities that still kept their fireworks. Most did essentially cancel Canada Day, or at least convert it. Probably not to the level it should be, but
I know there were citizens who were upset with this, and I think that this was a good move on the part of all these communities, the Chamber of Commerce's, the city councils, what have you, to make these decisions to cancel fireworks. We shouldn't be celebrating in the wake of this, in any sense, right?
If my birthday fell on the same day as my spouse's mother's funeral, I'm not going to show up at the funeral going, woohoo, birthday party, right? Like, you don't do that. You don't show up at a birthday. You don't show up at a funeral celebrating your birthday party. And
I might not make a big deal out of my birthday at all that day.
Yeah, right? You go, you know what? I'm going to have another birthday party. Like, I think an argument could be made that we need to reevaluate our relationship with Canada Day as a whole. I've certainly struggled with it for a decade or more at this point, of how do I balance my pride in things that Canada does do well with my recognition that there's a lot we don't. And I think Canada going forward needs to maybe take a good, long, hard look at our relationship with Canada Day and what that holiday actually means to many of the people who live in this land. But especially this year, it just, there's going to be, people have multiple birthdays. You're going to have a birthday again next year. We're going to have Canada Day again next year. And even if you don't want to do the self-reflection on how Canada relates to Canada Day, this year especially, you can handle not having a red and white cake. Or if you do, you have it at home, right? You don't need to have the fireworks. And so.
Yeah, I mean, I have serious issues with any form of like patriotism to begin with. so it's really easy for me to cancel Canada Day in my head.
Yes. So I even for those who do have a proud relationship with Canada, and even if you aren't feeling the connection to some of Canada's shameful actions of the past and aren't willing to examine that, and everyone's at a different part on their journey.
Yeah.
I hope people can understand at least why this year, especially right now, it would have been in bad taste.
Yeah, that's right. I guess it almost feels outdated the way that some of these articles are, but this was from Scott Moe defending his what is called jumping the gun on the last reopening targets. Said that we'll achieve the 70%, or even though the Saskatchewan's vaccination rate remained below 70% of eligible people. I'm not sure where we're at right now.
I think we crossed it, actually. I could be wrong, but I thought we did cross it.
I kind of suspected that by now we would have, but I'm still wearing a mask everywhere I go. So.
Yeah, I hit 2 weeks as of, last time we recorded, I had gotten my shot that morning, which means I'm now 2 weeks since my second vaccination. So I went for lunch with someone today that I had never gone for lunch with before, and who was also had their second vaccination.
Outside of my bubble.
Yeah, I went for lunch with someone who was outside of my bubble, and we both had our second vaccine, and it felt weird, but I still wore a mask to the restaurant, and I took it out to sit and eat, and I'm not traveling around the city making out with strangers at this point yet. Yet. But yeah, it's feel like that light at the end of the tunnel is feeling really bright, and it's hard not to get too excited, and we probably do need to just continue to be more cautious than we all want to be.
Yeah.
I have empathy for Mo on this. I certainly don't want to be cautious. I certainly
it's have so close, right?
Long list of people I want to go make out with over the course of the summer, but can't yet. It's gonna be good.
Yeah,
gonna be good. So yeah, we'll see where things go. I'm trying to look at the chart gives numbers, but it doesn't give percentages, so I don't know if we're at 70% or not. I don't think we're at 70% for second doses, but I think we're over 70% for first doses.
Yeah, I think we're very good on first doses, but
we're at about 750,000 on first doses by the looks of things. So 730,000 for first doses, 486,000 for fully vaccinated.
That's getting pretty good.
And I don't know, like, I know our population is over 1 million, but I don't know because they base on what's the population over age 12, right? Because we're not looking at because there's under 12 can't be vaccinated, so I don't think they're including that in the denominator of what the 70% is. So, but yeah, we've got to be getting pretty close. I think we're over it actually for the first dose. Got to be getting pretty close for second dose.
As those numbers go up, hopefully we will start seeing less and less of this other story, which is a Regina business was served with fake human rights violations notice because they followed COVID-19 public health orders. Some women went into a store, a Regina pet store, East Regina pet store, and the two women attempted to serve a fake human rights violation notice to the employees who were working there, claiming that they said, it's either you take this piece of paper or we're going to write down your names and we'll be back with something worse. That sort of statement always brings out the challenge in me. I literally would not have been able to stop myself from being like what? What's worse? What are you going to bring back? You have no power here. You're nobody.
That almost confirms that it's not that pretty much confirms it isn't what you're saying it is, then, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah, that's right.
If it's not, if you have the power to bring back something worse, then this probably isn't serving an actual legal document.
Yeah.
Or what you're doing is threatening us with violence, in which case, fuck off. But
yeah, that's right.
At that point, you take the piece of paper, you shred it, or you take the piece of paper and you contact if you have a lawyer on your chain, like the company has a lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is the kind of thing that, like I say, hopefully as the numbers of vaccinations go up and with public health restrictions coming off, we won't see this sort of thing. Right. But some businesses are still deciding to maintain certain restrictions, and that should be their right as a business. And as a customer, you don't get to say, no, I'm coming in here, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Businesses are not allowed to discriminate on protected grounds. Like you cannot say you're not allowed to shop here if you're a woman. You can't say you're not allowed to shop here if you're gay. You can't say you're not allowed to shop here if you're Black or Indigenous. There are certain protected grounds under human rights legislation that you cannot discriminate on. You cannot say my store will not sell to Black people.
Yeah.
But you're only not allowed to discriminate on protected grounds, and there are limited protected grounds. If you want to put up a sign that says no one is allowed to shop in my store if you're wearing a blue shirt, you can do that. You can say no one wearing a blue shirt, because wearing a blue shirt is not a protected ground. Yeah. And you can say no coming into my store without wearing a mask, because there is no human rights category that specifically protects anti-maskers.
No, that's right. And we see that. Yeah. We see that when they almost every business has a no shirt, no shoes, no service policy, right?
Right.
So I can't just go into a business with my bare feet and no shirt on. Yeah. You got to wear a mask, just like I got to wear a shirt. Neither of us is happy about this.
It's true. There's certainly places I would like to go without having to put shoes on.
Yeah.
I hate shoes. Shoes suck. I have to wear them for work. I don't want to have to wear them on my private time, but you know what I do?
Because that's the way this works.
I put shoes on before I go into a store.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Anyways.
All right.
I don't really know what. Yeah.
We made it through it pretty good, pretty quick tonight.
Yeah. There's lots going on, but at the same time, I think a lot of what's happening is stuff we've talked about before. And like we said, there's a lot of stuff where our voices aren't the important ones to listen to right now. So anyone, like I said, anyone who respects you or I and our opinions on things, once again, reiterate, I'm not telling you to stop listening to us if you want to keep listening to us, but if you're if your choice is between us and an Indigenous podcast, pick the other one. You can always come back to us later.
There are some very good Indigenous podcasts.
Absolutely. I'm not because I'm not a podcast listener, but my TikTok consumption has certainly shifted. I probably have a good half dozen to a dozen. I'm probably closer to a dozen now. Out of again, it's still a small fraction. I probably follow about 200 or 250 different people on the TikToks, but it's probably about 10% of them now are Indigenous channels that I really enjoy listening to, and whatever social media that people consume, whether it's Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, every social media now has the voices out there that you need to be listening to. So
I'm an overfollower on TikTok, just like every social media platform I'm on.
This does not surprise me.
So I'm overfollowing, and lately I've probably followed 20 or 30 Indigenous TikTok accounts in the last few days.
There's one called Modern Warrior, it's grown in popularity. I probably everyone on the left listens to him. To some degree, and I just one of the reasons why I don't overfollow is the ones that I want to listen to, I want to hear everything they have to say. Yeah. So I want to make sure I'm hearing everything he says. And
I'm just always astounded by, oh, this guy's amazing. Oh, this person's amazing. Oh, that person's amazing.
You need to go through it. I've done this once before, and I probably should go through it again, is go back and cull the ones that you don't find amazing anymore.
That's true.
I kind of when I first start, this, so I'm you're hot. Is that what I go on? I don't go on to TikTok anymore to see cute people, right? I kind of do, but yes, he's really hot without his shirt on, or she's really hot in a bikini, but that's not what I'd much rather listen to Modern Warrior say, "Hey, colonizer," and rip someone a new one because they're being a racist asshole. Yeah.
I really do. I love that so much.
So, but whatever place you get your news from, make sure you're listening to the people who are impacted the most, rather than two white guys sitting in sitting in front of the microphone. So.
That's right. And with that,
we can wrap up.
You can find us at anchor.fm/frommanypeoples. Our Twitter is at skpoliticspod. Our Facebook is facebook.com/frommanypeoplesstrengthpod, and our email is frommanypeoples@gmail.com, or you can buy us coffee at buymeacoffee.com/frommanypeoples. And that's it. So thank you for joining me this evening.
Thank you again for doing all the hard work. All right, take care.
You bet. Yeah,
that's probably longer than I needed to talk on that. I'm getting into some, getting into the weeds a bit on the pointy elbows of politics, but
that's all right.
We'll see where the fall takes us.
Our next, we won't talk as long on this next one.
Okay, we say that at the start.
Yeah.